Without further ado, let's bring out Mr. Baxter Black and friends.
I want to go where there ain't no telephone pole. I want to ride my horse where the shaggy buffalo strolls. Leave behind humankind, live my life with peace of mind. I want to go where there ain't no telephone pole. I've been out here way too long, something tells me something's wrong. Let me catch my horse and ride someplace that ain't cityfied. Go where there ain't no telephone pole. I want to ride my horse where the shaggy buffalo strolls. Leave behind humankind, live my life with peace of mind. I want to go where there ain't no telephone pole. Thank you, gang. This is sort of big time for me. Thank you for coming, all of you. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. There were a lot of people that didn't get thanked, and I'm not going to have a chance to thank each one of you individually, but I will tell you that I appreciate you being here. I don't normally have music on my show, and as I continue to sing, you will realize why. But a rule is to surround yourself with good musicians, and I'll introduce my friends later on. But most of what I do is tell stories, as you all already know, or I assume you wouldn't be here. We're a little late, but I can explain that. Now, I grew up a Southern Baptist, and it was a good upbringing, really was. But they are pretty staunch believers, and they don't bend too easily. And so as a child, I was taught creationism. And then I went to veterinary school. And they're all scientists up there, you know. And scientists tend to believe in evolution. And so I have borne this burden, like probably many of y'all have, through life, trying to resolve this problem. I have solved it for you. If Genesis was right on track concerning Adam's birth, and 7 days was all it took to build the planet Earth, then where does carbon dating fit? And all the dinosaurs, and all that other ancient stuff that happened on our shores. Now, I believe in scientists. They aren't just lunatics. But I believe in Genesis, which leaves me in a fix. The answer finally came to me while making up this rhyme. God made the earth in 7 days, but that was cowboy time. Did you ever call the shoer to set aside a day? You scrutinize your calendar, say, Tuesday'd be okay. The big day comes, you take off work, alas, he's never seen. You call him back, and he inquires, which Tuesday did you mean? Have you ever placed an order to get a saddle made? An A-fork tree with padded seat and silver hand inlaid. As decades pass, all you can do is sit around and eat, so by the time it finally comes, you've padded your own seat. My friend came by on July 4th. He swore he couldn't stay, but then he said, for just a bit. He left on Christmas Day. A couple days, a little while, not long, or right away should not be taken literally in Cowboyville today. But, like I said, the precedent was set so long ago, the angels had to learn themselves what all good cowboys know. They worried if they didn't work to keep the schedule tight, that Earth would not be finished by the deadline Sunday night. They never learned to think in terms of rolling with the flow. But God does things on cowboy time. To watch the flowers grow, he bade the angels to relax and said, for heaven's sakes, I'll get it done in 7 days, however long it takes. Thank you. Don't you feel better now? Yeah. Yes, I did too. It's one of those things that you spend your life trying to worry about. Well, I have been, and a lot of y'all have done the same thing. I have been making a nice, smooth, it wouldn't be fair to call it pop crossover, but when you realize that most of my stories started out being pretty cowy. I have learned to spread it out a little bit, and I realized a long time ago that a lot of times when you're talking to somebody who is not directly involved in the cowboy business, the cow business, and yet is a cowboy, a lot of times you have trouble communicating, and this is a problem that I've had to deal with. For instance, and I'll tell you the problem is that we sort of have our own vocabulary. In the cow business, they have a term for an animal that has no horns that's born that way, and it's called polled. Maybe you've seen the term polled cattle. But what do you think polled means to someone who lives in, say, St. Louis? Polled. Polled, I don't know. Maybe you go out and you get a pole. And you walk up to a cow, and you pole her and hold her up in the air so she can eat leaves. I don't know. Or maybe they think it has something to do with George Gallup. Well, going out to the feedlot today and pull a few steers. Excuse me, what do you think of K.D. Lang? She's on her side. And this is going to be real confusing, you know. Every rural county has an extension agent. And those of y'all familiar with the Extension Service out of Colorado State, they have an extension agent. And these are the people that put on the county fairs, and they teach our kids how to show the lambs, and they're the only people in the world that knows what's killing the elm trees, you know. But extension agent is not a term that is commonly used in a real urban sort of setting, you know. Say you were at a cocktail party somewhere. Say with Dr. Ruth. Excuse me, I'm looking for a good extension agent. Oh, really? Maybe I can help you. Hey, I got a phone call the other day. Man wanted me to judge a women's cycling contest. I said, gosh, I don't think I can get 28 days off. And this can get a boy in trouble. Yes, I guarantee it. I live over here in Brighton, and I got a phone call one day, and it was a lady, and she introduced herself and said that she was a reporter for the Boston Globe in Boston. She didn't think I knew. And she said she was on assignment, interviewing odd people. And she wanted to do an interview, and I said, well, I'd just be delighted. I'd be glad to do her, by gosh. And she said, well, fine. She said, I'd like to take you to lunch. And I said, nope, no way. Let me take you to lunch. See, it's the cowboy way. And you might get lucky. Guy never knows you. But you see, what I had in mind was to expose this person to what I consider probably the ultimate in our cultural cowboy cuisine. A little crop that we harvest every spring. Branding time from the little bulls. But you see, it did not dawn on me. In my little world, when we talk about oysters, it ain't exactly the same thing they're talking about in Boston. So off we went up to Severance. I made reservations, but it wasn't necessary. And we sat down, and the sign upon the cafe wall said, oysters, 50 cents. How quaint. The blue-eyed sweetheart said with some bewilderment, I didn't know they served such fare out here upon the plain. Oh, sure, her cowboy date replied. We're really quite urbane. I would guess they're Chesapeake. Or Blue Point, don't you think? No, ma'am. They're mostly Hereford Cross. Usually they're pink. But I've been cold, so cold myself, what you say could be true. And if a man looked close enough, their points could sure be blue. She said, I gather them myself. Out on the bay alone. I pluck them from the murky depths and smash them with a stone. Whoa! The cowboy winced. Imagining a calf with her beneath. I use a pocket knife. Yank him with my teeth. Oh, my, she said. You animal. How crude and unrefined. Your masculine assertiveness sends shivers up my spine. But I prefer a butcher knife. Too dull to really cut. I wedge it in on either side and crack it like a nut. I pry them out. If they resist, sometimes I use the pliers. Or even Grandpa's pruning shears, if that's what it requires. The hair stood on the cowboy's neck. His stomach did a whirl. He'd never heard such grisly talk, especially from a girl. I like them fresh, the sweetheart said, and laid her menu down, then ordered oysters for them both. When the waiter came around, the cowboy smiled gamely, though her words stuck in his craw. But he finally fainted dead away when she said, "I'll have mine raw." Thank you. I grew up in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and I don't know if any of y'all have been down there, but 3 of you, okay. They're all stationed at Fort Bliss. I know how that is. This is about 40 miles from El Paso, which is about that far from Ciudad Juarez. But it's down on the border, and it's kind of desert country, and if you're in the cow business, you go out on the range. See this stage? I don't know if you can see the top of it. This is what we call a good year. The year I left home, it rained 3.25 inches. That's right, nobody cared. They didn't even notice. And so I have never been real comfortable around deep water. Okay? Now, I had a job. I was working for this big feedlot outfit up in Idaho. And this company that sold us a lot of stuff come by, and good reputable company, and they wanted to keep our business. And they said, "We'd like to do something nice for the boys in the feedlot." And I said, "Well, I think probably they'd really like it if you gave their favorite veterinarian a new pair of boots, maybe a nice hat." But that was not what they had in mind. They wanted to take a bunch of feedlot cowboys deep sea fishing. Now, I don't know how many of y'all ever been deep sea fishing, but I knew I couldn't turn down the opportunity. And so we loaded on an airplane in Boise, and we flew to Portland, Oregon, got out, got in a little rental unit, and drove to this town called Ilwaco, Washington. Now, that is spelled I-L-L, Waco. And we got out and went to the first aid station in Ilwaco, and we was there from happy hour to probably 2:30 in the morning. Captain come by at 4 o'clock. I figure he was a reincarnated dairyman. I don't know. Who else is up at 4 o'clock in the morning? And so he picked us up in his van, and he took us down to the beach there, and he said, "Now, boys, I want to give you some advice." He said, "When you're going to be out on the ocean, on a day like today, when we have what we call in the business heavy seas, it's always wise to eat yourself a hearty breakfast." Hey, I didn't know any better. I went in and I ordered the fisherman's special. It was a short stack, a long stack, waffles, biscuits and gravy, eggs Benedict, grits, grapefruit, coffee, tea. Probably what stayed with me the longest was the homemade corned beef hash. Now, I have never met another human being who made his own corned beef hash. It comes in a can like dog food. I know how it comes. This guy made his, and he was proud of it. Made it with fresh, diced bell peppers. Now, anybody who has a package of Tums on their person at this very moment, or comes in every evening with that little white ring around your lips, sucking on that Maalox all day, can verify that there are some things that you eat that do not digest as quick as other things, and fresh diced bell peppers is one of them items that comes out the same way it goes in. And it don't make any difference which end it comes out of. So I go down and we board the Leprechaun. And we start out into the bay like this. And we drive around them big fence posts they stick in the water for the seagulls to on. And I'm beginning to feel just a little tiny bit queasy. And so I let myself out onto the deck, thinking a little fresh air would help, and it's not working. And so I come back down inside where all my tough cowboy friends are playing cards. And I sit down. And my stomach keeps standing up. And the diesel fumes are roaring by my head. And little pieces of bell pepper start working their way. They lodge right about here just for a moment. And then they go up and jam in the back of your sinuses. And they go off like sweet tarts. Oh. I don't know how many of y'all ever been eating horseradish and somebody made you laugh and you blew it out your nose. Did you ever do that? It'll make your eyes water, cowboy. I flat guarantee it. And finally we get way out there on the ocean. And I know we're way out there because I look back to the bank and the people are real tiny. And finally we get this sucker parked and they throw out the anchor and my friends are all lined up around the back of this boat. Fishing. And I'm lined up over here on the port rail. Yeah! Yeah! And my friends are sympathetic. And they see me there in my agony. And they mean well, and they come over and they have this big roast beef sandwich. Made out of that white bread that takes your thumbprints, you know. And the Miracle Whip is already separating into pork fat and 3-in-1 oil. And they hold it up to you and they say, "Here, eat this. You'll feel better." Yeah! Now in the middle of the back of this boat is a long white box about the size of a casket. It's the bait box. And right next to the bait box is a little naugahyde bench where I am spending the day. And every time the bait boy came over and opened the bait box and dug out big handfuls of fish guts and tuna helper and dripped it across the top. Right, get up, gut, Till finally, my friends are getting disgusted with me. And these are not people that are easily disgusted. These are feedlot people. These are the kind of people that will lance an abscess and then take a big dip of Copenhagen and go right on. And they're getting disgusted with me. So the next time the big green monster began to rise inside me, I refused to humiliate myself anymore in front of my friends. And so I went over and I let myself into a little room that opened onto the deck. a little room they called the Hayed. It's a nautical term. I believe a lot of y'all are familiar with a Hayed. It's a little room, has a little stainless steel bowl with screech marks on the side, blue water with white caps on it. Are you familiar with the term tsunami? It's a giant tidal wave that comes from Japan and is eventually washing away places like San Francisco and Vancouver. Well, here I am, doubled over in the head, retching in my own private agony. And all of a sudden, I am afflicted with one of the most malodorous of diseases ever to strike a human being. Oh, no. Yes, friends, I am struck simultaneously with the demon diarrhea. Oh! And so I turned myself in the cramped and thrashing headquarters, and I make the proper adjustments. And just as I am sighting in, excuse me, the tsunami strikes the side of the boat. The sliding door on the head shoots open, fires me out onto the deck. Whoa! Where I raced all the way around the bait box, taking little bitty steps, till I crashed back into the head, where I spent the rest of the day. And I only came away with one tiny bit of wisdom, and I'll pass it along to you now. Should you ever be invited to go deep sea fishing, always up chuck to the leeward. Are there any veterinarians in here this evening? With Fort Collins being this close, there are those of you who may actually be asked at one time or another to be wed to one of these veterinarians. Now, you could be male or female because they are both. But I want to give you a little, this is for those of you who might actually consider it. There is nothing more disgusting or deserving to condemn than a basket full of laundry from the local DVM. See, afterbirth is oil-based and needs to soak in hot like adipose tissue, but blood, of course, is not. It requires a frigid bath to make the stain repent. The problem with cold water is it sets the tag cement. Cat hair slips unnoticed, even by the sharpest ire, then spreads like dying dandelions in contact with the dryer. Samples long forgotten, in pockets pasted shut. Flavor all the laundry with fermented porcine gut. Organophosphate fragrance gently lingers in the air, mixing with the rumen contents on his underwear. Iodine and methyl blue, phytotomy remains, dog shampoo, dehorning paste and suppurating grains, abscessed ears and hooves and horns and poop. From who knows what? all gather in the dirty clothes to spot and clot and rot and later gets recycled as that ever-present scum that's now part of your Maytag, living on ad nauseum. Veterinary laundry can disrupt a married life. It's enough to make you jealous of a truck mechanic's wife. Yet there is no lofty moral, just a sense of déjà vu. A warning, now remembered, that should have been a clue when your groom gave you his hanky as his darling bride-to-be. You should have been suspicious when it smelled like tomcat pee. So don't let bloody coveralls or body parts of cows distract you from the promise spoken in your wedding vows. If laundries come between you, I'd suggest this little trick. Soak the spots in gasoline and flick it with your Bic. When you have the vet out to your house, and he's looking at your horse and he says, well, I have to take a sample home with me. You know where it's going to wind up, in the Maytag. I rodeoed for a little bit and was not very successful. But part of the good part of rodeoing was when it was over with, you got to go celebrate. And it didn't make any difference where you were. Any town that has a rodeo, when it's over with, you go celebrate. And having a traveling partner was one of those things that just made it a joy, Unless you happen to pick a partner like Junior. Junior would have a couple of big RCs and become invisible. You know the kind of guys I mean, don't you? Yeah. Now, Junior is tough and can't get enough of lively confrontations. And being his friend, I'm asked to defend his slight miscalculations. Among his mistakes, too often he makes none of his business his. So I counsel restraint because sometimes he ain't as tough as he thinks he is. Like the time he cut loose in a bar called the Moose in Dillon on rodeo night. I stayed on his tail in hopes to prevail and maybe prevent us a fight, but Junior's headstrong. And it didn't take long till he got in a debate involving a chair and big hunks of hair and starting to obligate his friends, I could see, which only was me. A fact I couldn't ignore. So taking his arm to lead him from harm, I dragged my pal to the door. No one disagreed, and I thought that we'd made our escape free and clear, but he turned to the crowd and said good and loud, "Who is the toughest guy here?" Not the smartest remark. In a place this dark, old Junior had gone too far. No one said a word, but I knew they heard because all heads turned to the bar. And there in the hole, like a power pole, stood the pressure for all of his peers. Ugly for hire. And he wore a truck tire that came down over his ears. And he had on some chaps with big rubber straps, but over his arms instead. And sported a pattern like the planet Saturn. His eyebrows went clear around his head. His good eye glared, while his nostrils flared like a winded leopardon, which lent him the air of a wounded bear whose pointer had been stepped upon. A crescent wrench swung from where it hung on a log chain wrapped round his neck. along with a claw, a circular saw, and parts from a Harley wreck. With his sumo girt, he needed no shirt. Hell, he had no place to tuck it. And wonders don't cease, he wore a cod piece made from a backhoe bucket. He was Fantasyland, the Marlboro Man, and heartburn all rolled into one. From where I was looking, our goose was cooking. Our cowboy days were done. And then he spoke from the hole like a thunder roll that came from under the sea. He swallowed his snuff. Said, if you're hunting tough, I reckon that'd be me. I heard a pin drop. The clock even stopped. Silence, except for me heaving. But Junior instead just pointed and said, you take over, we're leaving. Hey, thank you. I like that backhoe bucket. I like that. Every now and then you get a good one, you know, that somebody else didn't already think of. Every now and then you write one that you think is going to live beyond you. This one has already lived longer than I have. I call it the AARP. Of late, there's been a modest debate involving the wearing of fur. There are some even swears anybody who wears it is flawed in their character. Yet others will fight to maintain their right to wear what they dang well please. But the answer lies in a compromise that sets both minds at ease. Imagine two friends at opposite ends who meet and do lunch once a week. Their friendship is tried when they gather outside a Beverly Hills boutique. Sylvia! Oh, my soul. Is that a mink stole? Please tell me it's fake from Goodwill. Yes, Babs, it is mink. But it's not what you think, because it's designer roadkill. Oh, sure, you scoff, but don't blow it off. It's the wisdom of Solomon's voice, the perfect solution. It grants absolution, yet leaves the owner pro-choice. Wisdom so pure should forever endure and percolate into your soul. So I'm the head jack of the Animal Accident Recovery Patrol. The AARP. Which is Larry and me are on the road every night to gently remind you that mess left behind you is more than a buzzard's delight. Carry your trowel for mammal or fowl to collect your vehicular blooper. In time you will find yuckies all in your mind. No worse than a pooper scooper. Plus you'll be amazed how activists praise you for doing what you think is right, and no trapper'd object if you stop to collect things that go bump in the night. But treat it with care. Waste not a hair. Sometimes I have to do that twice because not everybody gets it. Waste not a hair. Be sorry, but don't sit and pine, because accidents happen when you're both overlapping the double yellow line. So salvage your plunder and render your blunder into a warm winter coat. And remember our motto, as you know you ought to, it follows, and herein I quote, make it a habit to pick up your rabbit. Don't leave him to dry in the sun. For the sake of a garment, recycle your varmint. It's tacky to just hit and run. Thank you. It all started when the boss said, bring us more cattle. I was riding Rev'nd Bubba, who's a son of Rev the Jets, away back in the crowding pen doing pirouettes and filling up the alley pushing cattle to the front whilst perfecting training methods that I'd cabbaged from Ray Hunt. Now, whoever built this crowding pen had built a real beaut, but it's obvious he'd never put a critter through the chute, because once a cow had seen it, it was Katie barred the door. And they wouldn't pass the portals if they'd been that way before, and this bunch was seasoned veterans. So Bubba took another rap, but they poured through him like water pours around the water gap. They were flooding all around us in this cowboy cul-de-sac when a big old redneck mama mounted Bubba from the back. Disbelief? No, more like terror showed in Bubba's bulging eyes. He never liked the bunny hop. Preferred to fraternize with species of his color, or at least his social class, so he reared straight up and nearly dumped this cowboy on his acetabulum. My rope, tied to the saddle horn, uncoiled like a snake and dallied round my boot that I'd kicked free for safety's sake, when a passing horned intruder speared the catch loop from the air. In retrospect, I believe my luck was all downhill from there. Now, I'll spare the gruesome details because you've heard it all before. Every cowboy's been a victim in this kind of tug-of-war, being caught between a bucking horse that's finally jumped the fence and a pig-eyed cow who stood her ground in sullen self-defense. I was somewhere in the middle as they drugged me back and forth with my right arm waving Dixie and my boots a pointing north. I was getting full of splinters, and my clothes began to smoke like a Mexican riata when the nylon finally broke. Sounded like a gunshot. It exploded with such force, it jerked me 10 feet high and threw me back upon my horse, who promptly stuck his front feet in the dirt outside the gates and fired me head first back amongst the frightened ungulates. "10,000 stomping cattle hooves, all hunting higher ground, smashed me flatter'n a roadkill cat." So they hauled me into town, where the doctor probed my memory to determine the extent of the damage to my cranium. Was I broke or merely bent? I awoke to see his tiny flashlight peering in my eyes. He'd apparently detected life and began to improvise a test to check my brain involving trigonometry. In a soothing voice, he asked, "What's 97 minus 3?" I stared back at him dumbly, with a blank look in my eyes. "I'm afraid," the doc concluded, "he's begun to stupefy." I said, "Doc, just hold your horses. That really ain't quite fair. I can read a brand blindfolded just by feeling of the hair. I can spot a raw imposter, be he saddle horse or man, and always find Polaris. Track a lizard through the sand. I can count a pen of cattle that come pounding through the gate and never miss a single steer. Hell, I can tell you what they ate." Ask me how to treat a gravel or who's winning all around. There's lots of stuff I savvy that'll prove my brain's still sound. But you're concluding that I'm daft upstairs. Just a lame brain buckaroo. I'd have passed your test if you'd asked me something that I knew. Thank you. Well, I have noticed that women of the 70s, 80s, and 90s are no longer intimidated by what I would call cowboy chauvinism, you know. I don't know any other word to call it because although it includes opening doors and the occasional flower, well, I'll take that back. I mean, that's it doesn't let go of the old some of the old things that don't suit the world today. When I suggested she do dishes and later stoke the fire because I felt that was her proper place, she calmly took the custard pie and plate of pickled beets and used it to redecorate my face. Now, I know this sounds unsavory in this modern day and age when male sensitivity is in, but I think it's biological, congenital at best, but women see things differently than men. Like the importance of a curtain. Or a fragrance in the air. Or yes, the omnipresent potted plants. They concern themselves with beauty and a certain ambiance, while I'm content to spray the place for ants. But in fairness to my jackass friends, it's not that we don't care. We're just looking from a different point of view. And to illustrate my thinking, and perhaps to shed some light, I offer this example as a clue. I was sitting with a couple when I heard the man remark, "My dear, I think I've seen that dress before." Yes, you have. I was wearing it the last time we went out. I believe it was 1984. Then she chastised him severely, and I'm sure she had a point, and I'll admit her wisdom right up front, but my simple cowboy logic led me down a different path, like blind men feeling up the elephant. If women understood our thinking, they might cut us all some slack, and maybe their attitude might soften. When he recognized his spouse's dress, the thought occurred to me, well, the crazy fool's taking her out too often. Well, you don't have to clap, ladies. This is a very special night, not just for me, but for some folks. Mr. and Mrs. Barge, I hope, am I saying that right, Ron and Connie? Are you here? These folks were scheduled to get married tonight. And they asked us to change our program to 4 o'clock, and I said, well, gosh, I'll have to call all these people. How are you? This is a thrill. Did you get married?
Sure did.
Congratulations. Is it Ron?
Yeah.
Let me see your ring. All right. Here. Give me that book. I got a little champagne for the, and hold it this way. Anyway, I can't thank you enough. I'm flattered that you did this. I hope it lasts forever. And how about a nice hand for the Barges? Thank you for coming up. You're right, my friend. Yay! All right. How about that? Now, I'll tell you what, when I got married this last time, I told myself, Bax, you better do this right. Because you've already owned 2 or 3 homes. You don't live there now. And so I made an appointment with a marriage counselor. And I got there early so I could watch people cry. And he finally let me into his office, and I got to tell you, friends, this fellow's office was filled from the baseboard to the ceiling, wall to wall to wall, was covered with little certificates and diplomas, thousands of them all over the room. They send them to one another, you know. This guy turned out to be a dyed-in-the-wool certified blue ribbon guaranteed psychologist. Psychologist? It is? Well, I knew that. The P is silent. Just like in swimming. I knew that. This guy turned out to be a real dork. He suggested we use the rhythm method. Where did he think I was going to find a 3-piece band at 2 o'clock in the morning? But I don't know. I got all the way to the altar before I realized I had not discussed one of the most important facets of a marriage with my bride-to-be. And I'm telling you this, Ron and Connie, those little habits that he has right now, Connie, when you said to yourself, oh, I can change that. I tell you what, when it sounds like the Civil War in the bathroom, before you even get up, you know, yeah, these little habits don't change. And you got to discuss these things and resolve yourself that you're going to live with them. And here I am, standing in front of the altar, realizing I have to discuss this very important topic with my bride-to-be, and the organist is coming to a crashing crescendo. And my bride is there glowing and radiant in her white dress, and the preacher's got everything wrote on the back of his hand, and we're fixing to commence. And I turned to her as subtly as I could, and I raised her veil. That's not my veil. Okay. And I raised her veil, and I whispered to her as subtly as I could. I said, Cindy Lou, Cindy, do you like sex? Oh, yeah! And this poor innocent woman turned and looked up at me quizzically, and her eyes began to moisten, and she said, infrequently. And I spent the rest of the service wondering if that was one word or two. Oh, y'all are so good. I can't. I'm going to take advantage of you. You know what I do. I tell funny stories, but sometimes I write one that I'm kind of proud of, but I don't get to do very often. And I would like to beg your indulgence and do one of my serious points, if I could. And the one I'd like to do, I spent 10 years up there in the Northwest, Idaho and Nevada and that part of the country. And that old country is a little bit like, eastern Colorado, except it's got a little more hilly, but it's got sagebrush, and there's parts of western Colorado like this too. But when you get those good spring rains, that old grass just comes on, boy, and by May it's green and it's beautiful. And since it's not that common, they don't get her grazed down. Well, those old rains quit about the end of June. And by the middle of July, that old grass, you just walk through it and it just cracks under your feet. Now, 2 years ago, Yellowstone caught on fire. And all the publicity that went around it just captured the nation's. It's something like that. If you've been around a fire, any of you people are firefighters, boy, you have my admiration. I believe the scariest thing I've ever been around is a range fire. I've not been in forest fires, but I've seen those range fires, and that old grass will catch on fire, and it'll just sail. And eastern Montana, that same year that Yellowstone burned, just caught on fire. And to give you an idea of how spooky this is, they clocked one fire coming through Bainesville, Montana, going over the North Dakota line. As far as you could see on the horizon was a wall of flames, and the flames were 30 feet high, and this fire was moving at 40 miles an hour. And that just sends chills down. I mean, I don't know how. The people that got out just got out. They didn't have anything to take but themselves. These fires usually are that old dry lightning you see cracking up there. Lightning cracked across the sky like veins on the back of your hand. It reached a fiery finger out as if in reprimand and torched a crippled cottonwood that leaned against the sky, while grass and sagebrush hunkered down that hellish hot July. The cottonwood exploded and shot its flaming seeds like comets into kerosene, igniting all the weeds. The air was thick as dog's breath when the fire's feet hit the ground. It licked its pyrogenic lips, and then it looked around. The prairie lay defenseless in the pathway of the beast. Seemed to search the further hills and pointed to the east and then charged like some blind arsonist, some heathen hell on wheels with his felonious companion, the wind, hot on his heels. The varmints ran like lemmings in the shadow of the flame, while high above a red-tailed hawk flew circles taking aim. He spied a frazzled prairie dog and banked into a dive, but the stoker saw him coming and fried them both alive. It slid across the surface like a molten oil slick. It ran down prey and predator, the quiet and the quick. The kildee couldn't trick it. He was cinders in a flash. The bones of all who faced it soon lay smoking in the ash. The antelope and cricket, the rattlesnake and bee, the butterfly and badger, the coyote and the flea. It was faster than the rabbit, faster than the fawn. They danced inside the dragon's mouth like puppets, and then were gone. It offered up no quarter and burned for 7 days. 100,000 acres were consumed within the blaze. Brave men came out to kill it, cutting trail after trail, but it jumped their puny fire breaks and scattered them like quail. It was ugly from a distance, and uglier up close. So said the men who saw the greasy belly of the ghost. It made them cry for mama. Melted tracks on D8 cats, sucked the sweat right off their back and broke their thermostats. It was hotter than a burning brake. It was heavy as a train. It was louder than the nightmare screams of Abel's brother Cain. It was war with nature's fury unleashed upon the land. Uncontrollable, enormous, it held the upper hand. The men retrenched repeatedly, continuously bested, and then finally, on the 7th day, like Genesis, it rested. The black-faced firefighters stared, unable to believe. They watched the little wisps of smoke, mistrusting their reprieve. They knew they hadn't beaten it. They knew beyond a doubt. Though Newsbreak told it different, they knew it just went out. Must have tired of devastation. Grew jaded to the fame. Simply bored to death of Holocaust and walked out of the game. Well, you can tell yourself, that's crazy. Hey, fire's not a living thing. It's only chance combustion. There's no malice in the sting. You can go to sleep unworried, knowing man is in control. That these little freaks of nature have no evil in their soul. But rest assured, it's out there. And the powder's always primed, and it will be back, you know it. It's only biding time till the range turns into kindling, and the grass turns into thatch, and a fallen angel tosses out a solitary match. Thank you. Hey. Thank you very much. We're going to... Thank you, gang. We want to sing you a couple tunes. Let me introduce you, my friends, to each other. But I'll just start right here. You, no. This, I don't have a band. I don't mean that as a reflection on this group. I don't normally have a band, but I love music, and I'm lucky to have friends that will help me and play along. I write songs, but I'm a better writer than a singer, but that's still debatable. Anyway, I'm very proud and pleased. The last time we played together, some of y'all might have seen our little specials on public TV, and that's why we called ourselves Baxter, Black and Friends for tonight. And this is the same group that we all went to Iowa and played, and the two ladies in the middle, Cindy Lou in the purple dress is my wife. She's playing the fiddle, and Cheryl Sir is my secretary of many years, and she lives in Aurora, and she's singing to cover up the notes I can't hit. And Jerry Mills, that you probably all of you who have lived here any length of time have seen him in a variety of bands, but he's played with Mason Williams and does KYGO Sunday night, 8 o'clock, has the Bluegrass Show. Jerry Mills on Mando, and my friend and the fellow who kind of helped me produce tonight, if that's a proper term, who helps me out in a lot of things, and playing bass, Butch Hawes from Brighton. So that's the people. Pincher Creek Wrangler, Jingle Bob Dangler, leaving his tracks on the trail. High on the skyline, riding the high line, chasing the moon by the tail. Geese flying over this homesick old rover, I'm leaving sweet grass behind. Going where God's eye lights up the night sky, north of the Montana line. North of the border, I see a quarter moon racing my horse up the trail. Alberta's calling, night sky falling, chasing the moon by the tail. 'cause I lay dreaming, I wake up scheming, maybe I'll just settle down. Future is brighter, my heart is lighter, now that I'm Alberta bound. Clear off an acre, then I can make her a cabin that I can call home. Chasing them rainbows, the lady, well, who knows, the dog gets my own telephone. North of the border, I see a quarter moon racing my horse up the trail. Alberta's calling, night sky falling, chasing the moon by the tail. Hell, who am I kidding? You know I didn't mean all them things that I said. They all blow a month's pay, the first bar where they say, hey, old man, we thought you were dead. But I'll stay till I get blue bug-eyed and snake-bit. My life is out here on the trail. Home in the saddle, I'll hang and ravel, chasing the moon by the tail. North of the border, I see a quarter moon racing my horse up the trail. Alberta's calling, night sky falling, chasing the moon by the tail. Hey! They didn't forget any of the words. That's their home. I go up to Canada a lot, and they're wonderful people. Some of y'all may be from there, I don't know, but they're good folks. And I like to get up that way. Well, we gave Butch the guitar. Hope this doesn't go off on purpose. Okay, let's see. I'm thinking here a moment, because to get this in just the right mood is critical. This is Cowboy Co-Syncopation. Did we call that, or? No. Prune juice, I don't think. South on the freeway. Okay. South on the freeway, driving along, watching the country roll by. You can't see nothing but sagebrush and mountains and occasional cloud in the sky. From Remington pictures and Hollywood movies, it looks like the scenery don't change. You can't see no one, and the way that it looks, there ain't nobody home on the range. Whatever happened to ragtime Cowboy Joe? All of his friends, and where did the cowboys all go? I'm here to tell you they're still out there rattling from boulder to stone. You just can't see them from the road. history is told about the story and song. And ever so often an irrational child will say to his mother so long. Heading out the west where a man is a man and they don't even ask your age. And I'll find me a man who can show me the way to be a rider of the purple sage. Whatever happened to ragtime cowboy Joe? Well, all of his friends, where did the cowboys all go? I'm here to tell you, they're still out there rambling from boulder to stone. You just can't see them from the road. Whatever happened to ragtime cowboy Joe? Well, all of his friends, where did the cowboys all go? I'm here to tell you, they're still out there rambling from boulder to stone. You just can't see them from the road. I'm going to tell you one of my favorite stories, and I know it's not quite timely, but I'm going to tell it because I tell it so seldom. It's wonderful. It's Christmassy as well, and it answers that age-old story question that we have borne with us through the years. How did the angel get on top of the Christmas tree? Yes, I know that's bothered historians forever. Well, I'm going to tell you how the angel got on top of the Christmas tree. It all started a long time ago, way back in the old days. Sandy was laid up there at the North Pole, kicked back in his barker lounger, toasting his feet by the fire, when something woke him, and he kind of started, and he glanced down at his watch, and it was 11:30. And he knew he had to be out of there by 12 to get the toys delivered to all these little children, or they wouldn't make it. And he hollered at Mrs. Sandy, who was in the kitchen building a little sack lunch for all the boys that going with him, all the little elves. Said, Ma, why didn't you wake me up? She said, I woke you up last Christmas, you no good sorry old bugger, and you got all over me. And I wasn't about to do it again. And he jumped up. And he ran into his closet and he rifled through all that stuff and the mothballs flying this way and he grabbed it. He already had on his long johns. Put them on in September. and he got them red breeches and he pulled them on like that over his deal, tried to button it, and popped those old gallows up over the top and he heard a great big rip. And he backed up to the mirror and he had tore the seat out of them breeches. And he looked at his watch. And it's 25 till 12. And he began to palpitate just a little bit. And he jerked them breeches off. And he took them down to the little tailor elf and said, boys, sew this up. And they did. And he run back into the house and he looked around there, a little scrabbled around looking, trying to find his boots. Said, Ma, said, where are my boots at? She said, they're out on the porch where you left them last Christmas. They built a little porch on a double wide there where you could kick your overshoes off when you come in. Sandy went out there and sure enough they were, but he'd pulled them off wet. You know how they get? And they just kind of done one of these. And so he pulled them on the best he could and he stomped down on them like that and the heel fell off the left boot. And he glanced at his watch and it was 20 to 12. And he began to panic, and he jerked that boot off, and he ran it down the little tailor elf and said, boys, hammer that back on. And they did. And he run back in the house, grabbed his hat, and he took out across the yard there to catch the reindeer, gather them reindeer up, and the yard light had burnt out. And somebody had left a dadgum Fresno parked right square in the middle of the driveway. He hit that sucker to high lope, went head over heels, hit the ground, just a big whoop like that, let out a war whoop, spooked the reindeer. They went out over the top rails into the beat top. He glanced at his watch, it was 11:45. He run down to the bunkhouse, shook out all the little cowboy elves, said, boys, saddle up and gather them reindeer. And they did. Yes. And they brought them reindeer and hooked them all up to the harness, and Sandy climbed up in front in his seat, got up in the buckboard seat like that, got his whip, cracked that whip like that, and the reindeer took off. And the sled just sat there. And his old bypass began bypassing. He looked at his watch, it was 10:12. He said, boys, gather them, the tugs had broke on the harness right there. He said, boys, gather them reindeer, and he took that off, and he took them down and put some new rivets in. Hooked that back up, hooked up the reindeer, cracked the whip, slid right down in front of the house. Just as he pulled up in front of the house, one of the runners fell off the sled. Sandy's pacemaker been kicking in. He opened every garage door from Minneapolis to Bismarck. Whoa, whoa! He said, boys, help me. And so they unhooked, they pushed the sled up and welded a new runner on, brought it back down, hooked it up to the sled, it was 5 to 12, he run in the house, and there was, he had this big bag of toys, grabbed this big bag of toys, slung it up over his shoulder like that, and the bottom fell out of that bag, and toys went everywhere. Sandy was down on his hands and knees, rifling, scrabbling around on the floor, grabbing them toys, sticking them back in a Safeway bag when this little... the King Super bag. When this little angel come flying in the door with a Christmas tree over his shoulder. He said, Sandy, where you want me to put this? Well, I want to thank you on behalf of Craig and all of us here at the Horizon High School in Thornton, and my friends up here on the stage who kind of made this a nice evening. And as the old boy said one time, said it better than I could, he said, you're such a good audience, I wish I had a better act. Thank you so very much for coming. I want to go where there ain't no telephone pole. I want to ride my horse where the shaggy buffalo strolls. I'll leave behind humankind, live my life with peace of mind. I want to go where there ain't no telephone pole. Well, I've been out here way too long. Something tells me something's wrong. Let me catch my horse and ride someplace that ain't city-fied. Bear down, sister. out front. We're going to come out front. We'll see you there. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Baxter Black and the Primates. Thank you. One quick thing to remind you about.